Well, that was the last few rousing calls from Longridge Band, conducted by Mark Peacock, and that was the finale from Faust by Charles Gounod. That was the last band taking part in the first section today at the Bolsover Festival. So there's going to be a little bit of a wait now when adjudicator David Charles makes up his mind, put in his results in his order of preference, and then we will be going back to the hall with Simone where the announcement will be made. So in the meantime, we're going to talk a little bit about bits and pieces, but the first thing we have to tell you that there has been a competition going on in the other hall, which was the unregistered section, also the fourth section, and we are joined by Annie Crookston, who was the adjudicator for that section. But the first thing is we may as well give you the results, and the winning band was Swinton and District Excelsior. They were first with 94 points. Just behind them came Audley Brass Band with 93 points, and in third place were Kirkby Colliery Welfare Band with 92 points. The best soloist prize was won by Daniel Potter, great name that, I think he's a film star in the making, who played the tenor horn with Swinton and District. And just to tell you a little bit what they actually played, they opened with Prismatic Light by Alan Fernie, then they played Feelings by Maurice Albert, arranged by Derek Ashmore, and young Daniel was the featured soloist there. Then they played All That Jazz by John Kander and Fred Ebb, The Ashokan Farewell by Jay Unger, arranged by Alan Fernie, and finished off with La Bamba by Richie Valance, arranged by Ray Woodfield. So I'm going to come back to you, Annie. You were the adjudicator. First things first, you had a great day there, lots of bands. Great variety, as you say. One thing we did miss, we wanted to hear the band with the electric guitarist playing Run for the Hills by Iron Maiden. Tell us a little bit about that one to start off with.
It was a great opener. They played it really well, and they did have an electric guitarist, and he did have the hair, and he did rock out on a guitar solo as well, and he was fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant. The only thing was, it was a pity I couldn't hear the band, because it just blew everything else away. But it was a great opener, and it just set them up really well for the rest of the programme.
And tell us a little bit about the winning band with Swinton and District. They were conducted by Robin Rutter. They opened with the Prismatic Light. A lot of bands are playing that. It's a popular piece of music by Alan Fernie. And then the young tenor horn player. And their programme seems very, very balanced. A lot of thought must have gone into it. Yeah,
it looks like I said to all the bands this morning, it looked like all of the MDs had put a lot of thought into their programmes and played programmes that played to their band's strengths. And this one in particular, when you've got an entertainment programme, you really need to look for consistency right from beginning to end. Consistency in performance and intonation, the whole thing. And they've got a good balance between more modern pieces and kind of the more traditional pieces that he would field to end with. But they got a wee fun element into it as well in the end, and they had a bit of kind of stand-up comedy and some props as well. But it made for a good connection with the audience, and it was a good programme. Yeah.
When you're adjudicating at fourth section level, is it a question of just saying, right, first things first, they've got to get the basics right?
Yeah.
And then you can add on the more, as we say, the esoteric type of things, that part of it there. So as long as that part has been done, the foundations are in place, then they can build a successful programme on top of that. And that was something that this band did.
Yeah, they did. Intonation is the big thing, especially in four-section bands. And I think it's really important with four-section bands they actually get it right in the adjudication and make sure you're giving them the right type of advice in your notes as well, because the bands want to be able to play consistently well ensemble-wise. But intonation can hit you hard, especially in a slow piece and especially in a quiet piece, and a piece where you've got lots of mutes. Cornet sections, lots of good cornet sections this morning, but as soon as you shove a mute in, intonation goes out the window. And then if you're accompanying a solo as well, and the intonation in the band's not great, so things like that hit lower section bands quite hard as well. But the winning band did a really good job right the way throughout the programme, so did really well.
We're also joined with Stephen Mead, who's come back to us as well, and also David Hurst, who is, of course, with the Association of Brass Band Adjudicators. And I'm going to just ask you two gentlemen as well. Both of you have done adjudicating. Steve, I know you've adjudicated in different forms, whatever. But when you're looking at, lots of people think of the top bands and they take good tune intonation exactly for granted. And sometimes when you go down to the sections, those are the things that bands, if they work on those type of things, they become really is the foundations for success. So how important is it, David, when as a band trainer, working each practice and just getting those basics right?
I mean, exactly what you say. It is important to get band training right. It's not just a matter of conducting pieces, but it's training the band to understand why that note is out of tune or why the ensemble's not quite together. And I think it's something you've got to keep going in every piece that you do. A lot of bands concentrate totally on that sort of band training aspect just on test pieces, and if they concentrated much more of the same thing on their ordinary programme repertoire, exactly what the function of the entertainment contest is, they would understand and realise that the standard of the band would actually improve dramatically, because all these elements that go into rehearsing a test piece are exactly the same elements, just as Anna said, that go into rehearsing every piece of music that you do. And if you work on the structure of your rehearsal and make sure that every element of the band training aspect, like intonation, precision, dynamics, which is often a problem when we listen to performances, and really make the band work hard, because there's nothing like going to a rehearsal and working hard for 2 hours and then really enjoying that aspect of it.
Just going back to what Annie was saying on the same subject, particularly with fourth section bands, Annie, you teach, you work with younger players and players that are starting out on their journey. Intonation is something that, as we were saying, a lot of points can be won for simply for fourth section bands and lower section bands being able to play in tune. Is that an issue that starts at the very beginning, or is it something that we should be spending more time on in the band room?
I think it starts right from the very beginning, but I think it's probably a bit more fundamental than that, actually. I think as an MD, and I certainly know from my own experience working with my youth band and working even with my first section band, you actually have to make sure that the players that are sitting about the band have the tools to be able to do these things as well. It's okay, I mean, and as you say, we're talking about intonation, we're talking about control over dynamics, but then you've got the control over articulation as well. And actually, it doesn't always fall just to the teachers as well. It's about the MD making sure that your players have got the tools and know how to use them, and then putting all of that together. So it's quite a complex mix before you even get to that stage as well. So I suppose you can take it for granted a wee bit when you're talking about intonation as well. But if the players really don't have the tools to do that, then it's your responsibility to make sure they do.
Yeah. Talking about that then, Steve, if you're talking back to how do individual players, especially young players, develop those type of skills? Because they all want to play loud and fat nowadays, you know, everybody wants to play the blockbuster sort of stuff and let's play 3 million notes. But lyrical playing, tuneful playing, what's the foundation for that individually?
I think that there's been a sea shift away in music education from singing. And I think if kids from the age of 4 and 5 were to sing in school choirs and things like that, they would bring so much better intonation, because you have this alignment of pitch and differentiation already in the head. And I think, you know, I was working with a really fine young youth band in Northern Ireland this week. It's a put together band. They hadn't really played together. And there was a marked difference between people who can, you know, when we even just do the dreaded tuning note, who can actually have the courage to hear the note, to take the air, you know. And of course it helps if it's got the right equipment. I mean, I found 3 kids that didn't have water key corks in their instrument. And you can recognise it straight away, and I'm sure we didn't have that today, but at a lot of levels it's that simple thing of not having a tiny mouthpiece when you're sitting on third cornet. So, you know, the pitch differentiation is like a tone between what you can squeeze. So it's good equipment, it's good training, more singing, more thorough preparation in the band room, not just concentrating on the notes in hand. You know, the notes in hand get easier when everything is much more taken care of from a basic music level. But really it starts in schools, and we're missing generations by the watering down of basic music education.
So it's something very fundamental.
We're having to fight that now.
Another thing about these music education in schools these days as well, a lot of funding cuts have led to people getting 4 and 5 in a lesson at a time, a 15-minute lesson with 3 or 4 or 5 players. It really takes away from the teacher's
It's almost what I call gesture education.
It is.
But it takes away from the ability to actually drum the fundamentals of playing and the young players. And I think a lot of what we see in lower section bands, for instance at Cheltenham a few weeks ago, it's the absolute fundamentals that playing that are sorting the bands out. It's not necessarily the ones with the best musical reading. It's the ones that just play together and play in tune. And to be able to do that, you've got to have players that are trained to do the basics of scales and all that sort of stuff. The absolute bare fundamentals of blowing the thing.
It's easy though, and sometimes when people ask, it sounds awful saying this now, but we sound so middle-aged when they say, in our day, when you were brought up with people who were actually teaching you, as you said, were brought up with the singing, the choral tradition, especially in Wales. As soon as you open the Red Hymn Book, number one was Aberystwyth, which is an old-fashioned Welsh Methodist hymn. Is you're a sad lot in Wales. They're always in a minor key. But at least you knew.
Nice you admit it.
They're always sad and melancholic. I mean, all the Welsh hymn tunes.
They wouldn't be Welsh otherwise.
No, but once you had somebody who could actually then teach you not only about the pitch but also about the shape and the line of the music, are we losing that as well? Both by simplifying the type of teaching that we're doing, but of course not broadening out our horizons and taking in choral teaching. Are you able to do that as a teacher within school now?
I would probably say not, that you're not able to do that at all, because there's a whole lot of other pressures on a timetable that expressive arts in particular are cut right back to the main. It's not just expressive arts, it's other more sideline subjects, and you've got the main core subjects that get the bulk of the time. So if your time is short and you're fighting for numbers to come through into senior school, you're going to take a lot of shortcuts. You're going to be looking at classroom instruments, keyboard, drums, guitar, all of that, and singing gets left by the wayside. And when you do singing, it's karaoke singing, and I don't like sounding middle-aged here.
Go on.
I do apologise. I don't want to sound like
I'm backing you up.
I tell you, it's karaoke singing, and it's singing like you would hear very kind of the florid type of singing that, do you know what I mean? But it's not. They're not using their proper voice. If you try to get kids to use a proper voice, they don't want to do it.
They're too timid. They're not used to hearing.
They're not used to hearing the proper voice, and it's a Scottish thing as well for us as well, because they're naturally kind of reticent. But and when you do get singing properly, it does make it. It's a huge.
And it's connected with breathing for me as well.
What's the basic of doing it then? That you can instill into a young player to encourage them to do it. Well, ideally, that you do when you're teaching youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't teach youngsters anymore, but I have such a clear memory of my early years. Growing up in Bournemouth, I used to sing in the singing company at Boscombe Salvation Army. As a little kid, I joined the singing company at 5. I stayed there till I was 13. I played in the YP band. So singing and playing was interconnected. I went from one rehearsal to the other. The euphonium was my voice when I was playing, so there was that. But I think, ideally, every student works on good habits with a teacher from a very early age. That's an ideal situation. And then at the age of 12 or 13, you have a nicely rounded musician who can sing, who has confidence to project their voice, and simple things like learning how to breathe. You can give somebody a prestige cornet. Other cornets are available, and a good mouthpiece. But of course, if their air is not supported and they're not, I've seen kids just kind of go. It doesn't matter what equipment. So it's this teaching good habits. And we think that we can now, with technology and this push-button society that we're in, we can simply override the steps of this art, this craft, I think everyone has a feeling for music, but to understand it in depth and have a solid knowledge of how to sing or how to play takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes working with a good teacher. And we're in a society that cutbacks generally, funding and time to do those things, yet we still want the results.
But fundamentally what we're saying here is that has to start prior to anybody picking up an instrument for the first time, and that's where, we're saying for all of us of a certain generation, we all sang hymns at school. You were in the Salvation Army, Steve, I sang hymns at school, but that was for most of us our first experience of using our own voice, but that's gone. It's completely gone. So there's a whole tier that's been stripped out of music education before anybody picks up a brass instrument for the first time.
And that's worked its way through to conductors as well, because I see now many conductors who don't use the voice to articulate what they're actually trying to say and demonstrate fundamental problems and resolutions to the difficulties the bands have got, which I am quite surprised at. But that is increasingly, I'm seeing that increasingly more.
I think you can tell in the brass band competition, if you ever go there, in the first band they say, right, we always still play the Queen. I'm not going on to the political point there, but if you go to a Welsh contest and they do a Welsh, they all get up and no self-conscious. They will get up and sing the national anthem. It's something. It's not in 4-part harmony, whatever it is. But you see that the Queen and these nobody knows the words of it. Are they self-conscious of actually hearing their own voices?
Yeah,
I can actually. I remember sitting in a rehearsal with City Coventry Band many years ago. Peter Parks was conducting, where we had the whole of the front row singing their parts, but not just singing them. He'd say, "Sing it, play it, sing it, play." He had them alternating backwards and forwards, singing, playing, singing, playing.
I do that in my youth band as well. I get them.
Yeah.
Well, before we played at the European, we sang the whole first piece that we were going to play in the programme, and it just got them buzzing, and they loved doing it as well. Got them buzzing, and it got them played really well. That's a great thing to do.
I think most of us have been travelling in Europe, and if you go to Germany and especially to Austria, where they have this fantastic music school system, where tens of thousands of young Austrian kids learn music, really well from the start. Now you get a youth brass band from Austria, and you do a concert, and they go to a restaurant. Within 10 minutes, they're singing. They're not singing, they're singing folk songs. They're singing songs, and they're singing in harmony. And somebody's taking a lead, and others back up. So it's just part of their being now. Singing is part of their culture, and I think when we get it back, I'm not the singing teacher. I still enjoy, singing in the car or whatever. But I'm sure my really good sense of pitch has come from all those years of training between the age of 5 and 12, those essential years. And we miss that at our peril. And I say some cultures, like in Austria and Germany, Upper Austria, still have it alive. And it's amazing when you hear it. It's like, look what we lost.
Yeah. Look at the support they get in Upper Austria from government.
Yeah.
I think it was at 6 billion euros or something they spend every year on music education in Upper Austria alone.
And the people elect politicians that are going to support the arts, not just, a penny in the pound or
it's a matter of
a euro in the
priorities,
pound.
isn't it?
Yeah. They see the value for their society. It's getting very deep here. It's deep.
Well, I've got to thank you all for this. It's been a great conversation. I think in a few seconds' time we'll be actually going back to the hall where Simone will be ready for the results. So they're saying it's going to be the results of the first section competition. The adjudicator was David Childs. There were 10 bands that he had actually listened to. I'm quite sure that he'll have something to say. And then Simone will come on and announce the results and find out who's going to be crowned the first section 2016 Bolsover Festival of Brass champion. So hand you back to Simone in the hall.